Hey everyone, I'm being joined here today by Leigh Chivers. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Leigh has a remarkable story and some really powerful insights to share about how he's navigated situations that are simply inconceivable for most of us. And as we go through our own uncertainty right now with the rug pulled out from under what we call a normal day, Leigh's already experienced that in ways that are truly profound, and it's still going on for him. So I wanted to have Leigh on the podcast because he has a perspective that's worth hearing. As we all face our own uncertainty, he's already faced it. And it doesn't mean to say he's got all the answers, but he is carving out a life based on his truth and who he wants to be. So thank you, Leigh. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Sharon.
Would you like to, if I was to throw to you, would you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about yourself and a bit of your bio?
Sure. Well, I suppose, unfortunately, what I'm known for, and I suppose why I'm here today, is that back in 2017, I lost my wife, Sara, who was 34 at the time, and my son, Alfie, who was 2, both to brain cancer within 6 months of each other. I now live with my son, Hugh, who's 5 years old. He's just started prep. And I'm trying to rebuild my life after probably a 10-year battle with brain cancer, starting back in 2008 when Sara first got diagnosed. After going back to 2008, Sara and I were just dating at the time. She had a seizure at work. She was just working at a media company, had a seizure at work, taken by ambulance to the Alfred Hospital. And I remember walking into the room. I got a call at work and just told my boss that I had to leave because Sara had passed out at work. And he said, "Oh, it's probably just dehydration, or she just hasn't drunk enough, or she's tired." And I walked into the room, and her brother was there, Mike, and sister Steph, and her parents were overseas at the time, actually, and 2 doctors walked in, and we were just 25, going out, having coffee on Saturday morning and eggs on toast, and just living a pretty good and normal life in Melbourne. And the doctor came and said, we've found a mass on your brain, and if we don't do something, you're going to die. Was effectively what they said. And it was like that's where your world just gets flipped on its head, because obviously it wasn't me sitting in that hospital bed, it was Sara, and I'm standing next to her, but the effect was just, so shocking. And at only 25, to think that your life would be, could be over, I suppose. It was, a huge reality check, and first time that I'd felt my, reality disappear. But she battled on, and she had three brain craniotomies in the next 6 months. She had 8 weeks of radiotherapy. She had a grade 3 brain cancer, I should say, which is quite a high grade. It's not the highest. The highest is grade 4. But the prognosis is still not good. Almost everyone passes away within sort of 5 to 10 years of a grade 3 brain cancer. But she recovered, and luckily she recovered without any deficits or any physical deficits, I should say. And she recovered and got back to work about 8 months later, but forever changed and forever just, living with constant anxiety and fear of it reoccurring. 6 monthly checkups each 6 months. We'd go have an MRI, and the week leading up to that would be full of anxiety, because you realise again that you might get hit again, at any point in time. So it never leaves you, I suppose. But luckily, we had a good run for a few years, and it seemed to be, not that it's gone from our minds, but behind us in a way. And we ended up getting married in 2012. So 4 years later, we got married. And then we had our first son, Hugh, in 2014. So we sort of built confidence, I suppose, to get on with life over time. And then had Alfie only less than 2 years later, actually, in 2016. So it was a busy, it was 2012, marriage, there was a house in there, there was a renovation, there was 2 kids under 2. So we were going pretty, we were living a full life for that time. And it was really, we were really, really grateful. Sara was incredibly grateful for all of those experiences because they just weren't, she definitely knew they weren't guaranteed for her, for both of us, but especially for her. And so she really cherished the everyday, I think, that we got. In 2017, I'd actually, we were looking to move to Queensland for a job opportunity. So we'd actually both resigned from our jobs, and we decided to get because we were moving, we decided to get a final scan to check make sure there was no issues before we moved. And as it happened, it was that scan, 3 months, it was 3 months after her previous scan, and she had 3 new tumours on her brain 3 months later. So just such a short amount of time, and that changed everything. So we had to, luckily we were able to get our jobs back, or at least we were able to get re-employed by the same people that we'd quit, were looking to quit from, and we had to stay in Melbourne. And that's when the journey started. So that was March 2017, and then Sara started chemotherapy for about 3 months, and you're constantly checking to see whether it's going to have an effect or not. It's sort of at this point in time, actually, it appeared, we didn't know, but it appeared to had progressed to a grade 4 because there was 3 and they'd grown so quickly. It looked like it was a worse type. I should say it was inoperable as well. So at that point, it was not possible to operate because they were in locations that you couldn't get to. So chemotherapy for 3 months, and then she moved on to that. After 3 months later, it became apparent that didn't appear to be having much impact, slowing the growth, and so she tried another type of treatment, and that actually had quite a positive benefit. And it was during that time that she had that sort of 3 months where it didn't go so well. Then another couple of months it started to get a bit better. That Alfie started appearing a bit ill. So, symptoms of brain cancer, for a 1.5-year-old, they're not really that, a bit of vomiting, nausea, irritability, and sometimes a bit of loss of appetite, like nothing that would be too extraordinary, out of the ordinary, I guess, potentially for any child, 1.5. So we took him to emergency 3 times, trying to figure out what was going on, and eventually they told us he had a virus, actually, and so we took him home, and he still didn't want to eat anything, so we took him back, and eventually I remember we were there all night. I was in emergency with him all night, and he started showing signs of slight shaking in his right arm, and he and the nurse noticed this, and so they took him away to have a CT scan because they thought maybe there was something more here, and that's the doctor came back in tears, crying, because she had found what was a pear-sized tumour right in the centre of his brain. So it was a very, very difficult brain cancer from that point forward. So what transpired from there was, for Alfie, it was 8 months or 9 months in hospital. He would have had at least 11 surgeries. He had 2 12-hour operations to try and remove it. Sara at the same time was progressing with her treatment. She had another surgery in the city. She was at a point where it was clear that it wasn't a matter of if the brain cancer was going to in her life. It was a matter of how much time she had, how much quality time. So her purpose and desire really came to just be there for Hugh and Alfie as long as she could be. That was what was driving her. So she was trying to. She had some further surgery and further treatment, which helped sometimes, but at other times it didn't work. It was just a real incredible roller coaster of trying to I guess balance a lot of things. Sara's treatment, Alfie's treatment, trying to give them the best opportunity. Some hard decisions that you just don't want to have to make. Like, Alfie being so young, he needed, ideally needed a different type of radiotherapy than what's available in Australia. And so we even sought an opportunity. He got on a trial in the US for an opportunity for what's called proton radiotherapy, which has a lot less impact on the child's brain. In some circumstances, not always. But in Alfie's case, it was clear that this was a better option for him. And you were facing decisions like, well, do you send him to the US knowing that he might never see his mother again? Or do you keep him here and maybe not give him his best opportunity at recovering? And it was, it was beyond what you could imagine, I suppose, in your wildest dreams or in a movie or whatever. You're almost like you're going, life is more crazy and surreal sometimes than what we can imagine. But if I keep going, as it turned out, Alfie had some complications. So we had decided to send him overseas because as parents, even though it was heartbreaking for Sara to think about this, but you just wanted to give your son his best chance at recovering.
That would have been like to have made that decision.
And so we decided to send him, but before he was due to go, he had some complications. He had some pressure, due to fluid flow in his brain, which meant that he needed further surgery, further what's called a shunt put in to stop some pressure in his brain building up, which meant that he couldn't fly anymore because there could have been issues tragic issues if he'd flown quickly after that. And so he missed that opportunity. So I guess in a way it was taken out of our hands, which was I guess a relief in some ways, because we were going to tear ourselves apart doing that.
I don't think this sound's working for me. There we go. It's not switching to me. I don't want you to feel that you're alone right now when you're speaking. But I am trying to speak, but it doesn't switch to me to speak. So you don't get to hear that I am commenting as you're speaking. So I hope you don't feel that I'm with right now, because I'm not.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's just a slight delay.
Yeah. So what I needed to switch back. It's not switching back. There we go. So I can't even imagine what that would have meant. Firstly, to have made the decision he's going to go on the plane, and what that would have taken mentally to get to that point, and then to have that decision once you'd geared yourself up for it, to having that decision taken away. That falls in the category of it's inconceivable.
Yeah, I think it was probably, I remember at the time trying to, you just want to do the right thing, but sometimes it's just not clear what the right thing is. And it even reminded me to the point where I was thinking, how do I find an example of what the right thing to do here is? Because there's just none. And a friend of mine was actually in the army, and I thought, well, this is sort of like triage of how do you minimise the suffering in a situation, and what's the right thing to do? Do you give one person their best opportunity whilst it's going to cause a lot of suffering to others in the family? And it was just it was not clear. But I think, when I I think the only thing that made it clear to me was when I put myself in or when we both did, but when we put ourselves in Alfie's shoes and we just said, well, what would Alfie want? What would his voice be? And, you know, well, he wants to survive. He wants to have a life, and he deserves that. So that's probably the only perspective I could, made sense to me, I suppose. And that's what I held on to keep me sane, I suppose.
Absolutely. As much sanity as you can have during that period. It was very surreal, and insanity was an easy way to describe yourself, because there was no foundations upon which you could just sit and land and feel comfortable. There was never comfort, ever. So the foundations that we all take for granted weren't there.
No, it was, and it's also, that's right. And it was very, I think some of the similarities are that, there was, it's not just the patient either, is it? There's Sara to consider, her emotional, her family, my family, Hugh, myself. Like, what's the impact to all of us in this situation? Like, it was really tough, because it was almost like the best thing for Elsie was the worst thing for all of us, I guess, in a way. But we still tried in that instance, but it was taken out of our hands.
Yeah, definitely. And then Sara passed away in 2018.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, in January 2018. We moved them both to Monash. So she was at McCulloch House in Monash, and she was getting palliative care there. So we moved her there so that she could be close to Alfie. He was getting his treatment at Monash at that time, at the Monash Children's Hospital. So it's sort of, in that situation, it was the best that we could do. Sara was home to a point where, but it got unmanageable, where she was home, I was here with her and Hugh, and Alfie was in the hospital. But there was also the complications of her needing a lot of support, I suppose, to get through the day. And also there was starting to become the difficulty of actually getting her to the hospital to see Alfie as well, just having the energy to do that. So she moved to palliative care there, and we had probably about 3 months there, I think, in the end, so November through to January, whilst Alfie was getting treatment and Sara was being cared for. And yeah, it was nothing like normal life. Yeah, it was getting up each day and taking Hugh down or dropping Hugh off to be cared for, and then going to see Alfie, see how he's going, maybe taking him out for a walk, taking a walk across to see his mum, Sara, and just sort of, that was sort of the daily routine, was pretty much just be there all day, and we sort of reached out, and we created a roster of people, so my family and a lot of friends and Sara's family, to sort of be there with Alfie, so that he was never alone, because I guess it was just impossible to be in two places at once. So there was a lot of people that we drawed upon to help us through that time.
And one of the things that I know Sara became known for was the letter that she wrote to her boys with instructions. She loved lists. And and apparently you have a bucket list. But one of the things when you're speaking that just struck me was, while Sara may be known for the letter and her experience, everything you're speaking about is the things that people don't necessarily connect with as much. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, the letter, as inspirational as it is, just a snapshot in time. The reality is, you and her and all your family and all your support network, day after day, year after year, doing what needs to be done. And it's easy to say, yeah, I remember Sara, she wrote that letter to the world that went viral, but that's not the story of what happened here. To me, it's what you did and what everyone did to get through this. It's years behind the scenes to come down to one letter. That's what I'm hearing when you speak, Leigh.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, Sara had brain cancer since 2008.
Yeah.
She wrote that letter, nearly 9 years later. So I think it wasn't, just a one thing. I mean, I think what pushed her to do that was definitely, having her two young boys there. It was really for, obviously for her kids, really, to remember her by and so that she could have a voice to talk about what was happening to her. But I think you're right. I mean, the story for us was more sort of 9-year story or 10-year story. And it's also, for the rest of our lives as well. So but I mean,
it's not a story, because it's not a story. This is your life and you're living it every day, and Hugh's living it every single day. And so that's why I'm just so careful and respectful here. And I'm sure our viewers get it. Oh yeah, that's Sara who wrote the letter. No, it's Sara and her family and her friends and all her supporters who had that experience for 9 years. And everybody who's still here will live with this forever. The letter might be the snapshot in time, but there is lives here every single day doing what they need to do. And I think sometimes we love it to be so simply. If we could just wrap it up in a bow, and this to me is a metaphor for that. Oh yeah, well, that was very inspirational. She did this letter. Yeah, but in between that, there would have been the tears and the pain and the frustration and the confusion and am I doing the right thing, and moments of intimacy that we don't ever have to think about. And I just want, the podcast called Perspectives, what I want to bring to this is, let's just remember adversity and not the inspirational moments. It's everything that led up to that moment and everything that has to happen afterwards.
Yeah, well, that's very true. I mean, I'm very. It was a beautiful letter, but definitely, our experience of life is not that letter. I think, if we're talking about Sara, I suppose she did. What she did well was she got on with her life. She, that sort of 10 years we had post 2008 was pretty, or 9 years, it was pretty jam packed, and we experienced a lot in that time. But it wasn't ever about it wasn't about proving anything. It was just about enjoying that time. And I think that was probably for us the most special thing. I think, having that perfect wedding day that she never thought she'd have, or being able to look after the two boys and just enjoy that moment, or have a home and be in the home. It was just, it probably wasn't the glamorous things. It was definitely the simple things that we built over a long time that we enjoyed the most, I think, during that time.
And you're very clear. One of the things you mentioned earlier, and that came through when I was reading a little bit, as much as writing and words can share with me about your life, was you were both so clear on purpose. There was purpose in you caring for your family. Your wife made you promise to commit to a triathlon Ironman.
Yeah. She did that for me.
In the past. I mean, it's just that you did that was phenomenal. I watched the video on that and I just thought what was it you were tapping into to do that? Because Alfie passed away I think it was 6 days before you ran the Ironman. What did you do, if you have words for that?
I think everyone grieves in their own way. I think it was a deep, it was two things. Sara gave me that sort of push to try and do that, and definitely all the encouragement, I suppose. And that was looking back on it, was a lovely, I mean, I see it as a bit of a gift. She was helping me move on. But I think there's just a feeling when you're in these situations or in that situation that just every day counts. I didn't really have any. I got to a point where I was very just like very one day at a time. And so, and also just not knowing what the next day would bring. Like I didn't know if, you know, Alfie was going to go to the US for treatment, or if he just wasn't, or if, so, you know, it just, your confidence in a week's time or a month's time was sort of gone. So I'd entered the Ironman, you know, I think when Sara passed away, just as a bit of to keep me going and training during that time. And I wasn't super fit or anything, but I just thought, oh, you know, I'd had nearly, you know, a year and a half of being in and out of hospitals and just uncertainty every day, just living one day at a time. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to show up and do it and see what happens. You know, it wasn't just like, didn't seem like there was anything else to do. You know, like this, it was just purely that, you know, the thought of, oh, I'll wait till next year. It's like, well, next year I might be dead next year. So I might, you know, that sounds ridiculous. Well, it's not ridiculous. I think when you're in that frame of mind, you're literally thinking that, oh, well, I might be dead next year, so maybe I'll just do it now. So that was sort of the thing. And I think as well, I guess it helps me, you know, personally, I probably just, it helps me focus and get into my body and work through some things as well, I think as well, rather than, thinking too much or whatever. It helps me, move beyond a bit.
I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder and say what happened next, because feel free though to take it away. You didn't complete it, and that meant you didn't qualify for the next ridiculous endeavor that you thought you'd be doing.
Event, yeah.
But what happened was, one of the you got selected as an honorary to run in it, and you also were selected as the ambassador and the spokesperson for the next ridiculous endurance event. You'll have the name of it.
Yeah.
What I loved was what one thing said, and I've written it down here: chosen for characteristics that go well beyond competition. And I speak to that, speak to what it was that you were tapping into to show up. You said you were getting through one day at a time. You also said conversations, you were holding them in your heart and seeing them in your mind running with you. And this is, I'm not turning this into an inspirational thing at all. I don't know what I had to have tapped into to have put one step in front of the other, Leigh, let alone to have it completed. I mean, just speak to that.
Well, I think it's, if I think through it, there's sort of two parts to it. I think, you know, when Sara and Alfie was sick, if I go back a little bit, you know, I talked about the purpose that I had there to just be there for them. And that was my, you know, my purpose there, and that got me through each day. But there's also another part, which I think, you know, if we're talking broadly about resilience and moving forward, is about just looking at each day and saying, well, you know, if there's, you know, what are the things that are going to make me happy each day? You know, like not to overcomplicate it, but just sort of say, well, if I think, all right, well, I'm going to have a, you know, sit with Sara and have a coffee with her. I'm going to have a play with Alfie and take him for a walk, and I'm going to, you know, do something with Hugh. We might go for a bike ride, and then, you know, I'm also going to go for a run, and that's my exercise. And I'll try and like write a list of things each day. And I did that every day, almost every day, I would say, whilst I was sick. It was just a list of things that I was going to do that I would enjoy doing. And you know, often, you know, there's, you know, usually 3 or 5 things on that list, but one of them was sort of go for a run or ride my bike for an hour, or just do one thing that I enjoyed. And I think that was the other sort of strategy, I suppose. There's the purpose strategy, but there's also just doing things that you enjoy each day that will get you progressing.
Well, you're doing,
so I think,
being proactive in the face of a situation where it'd be really easy to be reactive. One of the things I'm noticing about now are people are making choices. maybe unconsciously, maybe not, about how they're handling the changing world we're living in now. And some people are choosing, maybe unconsciously, to just react and to go into hibernation mode and wait to see what happens next mode. Whereas others are being proactive and are trying to carve out some certainty amongst so much uncertainty. And that's what I'm hearing in what you did. As much as you could, give yourself a sense of purpose and proactivity each day. So there was stuff you were masters of. You were the master of riding your bike. You were the master of what you're going to do. So you carved out a little piece for you amidst so much uncertainty.
Yeah, that's right. That was my plan, if I had one, for myself. You know, if it was to say that, you know, and I think the other way to look at it is just trying to, you know, even getting out into the sunshine, out of the hospital into the sunshine each day was the purpose of, you know, Alfie's down for a sleep, I'll go for a 40-minute run whilst he's asleep and just be in the sun and running. And it's like, it's hard to fall as low when you're doing things that you know, typically enjoy, or when you are moving, doing something like that. For me, at least, you know, there might be other activities that other people do. So I think it stops you. You know, you got to find activities, I think, that stop you falling too low. I think you know, and that will bring you from a state of, you know, even if I was horrifically stressed and you know, I remember, times when I was so stressed that I felt like my heart was jumping around in my chest, and it was just so intense. And so things that I used to, like having a cup of coffee, was just too much, because I can drink lots of coffee now, and it's, you know, probably affects me a bit. But at that point in time, it was just different. You know, I just couldn't have a cup of coffee because it would just send me into an anxiety spin. You know, drinking alcohol, you know, again, like if, you know, having a couple of glasses of wine, like I like doing that. But at that time, if I drank too much, I had a few glasses of wine, I would find the lows, I would go so low that I had to try and, you know, be very careful with what I did, I guess, each day. And so it was sort of trying to keep yourself on a bit of a narrower path of those habits that you have. If you indulge in some of the bad ones, I think what happens is you end up at a much lower low than you would if you kept better habits, or doing things that you enjoy that don't cause you to make those poor decisions. So I think that's just, if I can articulate it.
The other thing I'm hearing you did is you didn't numb your way through it. As attractive as that might have been, you didn't numb your way through it. So alcohol is a good number. I noticed purchases of alcohol right now where people are hoarding alcohol, and people are behaving in a way where somehow they can cushion the uncertainty. They can create a buffer or uncertainty. I'm not hearing you did that. I'm hearing you dealt with the uncertainty in a way that was proactive and nurtured you as much as you can during that time. That's really, to me, just incredible that you're able to do that given what you were all facing and dealing with.
I mean, don't get me wrong, we didn't do it all perfectly. But I think certainly the, you know, that if you can, that full acceptance of and that, it's probably an overused word, but in terms of just saying that, you know, Alfie is a sick child, or Sara's ill, and I'm gonna show up each day. You know, I think at my base level, when I was really, you know, if I really struggled to know what to do, it was like, you know, I think there was a book I read once years ago that sort of said, if you're really falling low, just show up, ask questions, and don't quit. And it's sort of like, so if you're just really struggling and you don't know, you know, what to do, it's like, okay, I just need to show up. I need to ask some questions, and I need not to quit. And if you can just do those three things, then you'll keep moving forward. So I think, that's sort of that base level. But I was going back to the acceptance, is to say that, yeah, those times with, you know, that acceptance of that situation, it was terrible, but it was also, yeah, that was our life. That is life. You know, you don't, you know, what it really does make you realise is that you don't, if you go back to the beginning when you weren't alive, you had nothing and you weren't experiencing anything, and you had no, you know, this perspective helped me a lot, I think, when Alfie was sick, because I think with Sara, she at least got to experience a fair bit in life, whereas Alfie, it was very hard to come to terms with. Why does a 2-year-old not get to experience life like that? Like, why? What's the meaning in that? And if I think about it, the way I would think about it is, well, there was a long part of my life that he didn't exist. He wasn't there. He had 0. And then he had 2 years of life, but there was a time when he didn't exist and when he had nothing. And so I think if you think of it like that, there is you come into this world with 0, and so everything you experience is part of life. So hiding from it or not fully accepting it is you're missing out a little bit, I think, in terms of, even if it's terrible, you're missing out on what you could be experiencing if you experience it, if you accept it fully and then move into it instead of running away. Because if you run away, well, then you don't get to experience it, I suppose.
Yeah. So handling uncertainty is about what we can draw on within ourselves. And what I'm hearing you share is that you had the capacity to tap into that within you. How do you come about having that? Because I imagine there's plenty of people listening and who will share this podcast with people who perhaps don't have that frame, where they're denying reality and denying uncertainty, or being angry at it, or being fearful at it, or yelling at it, or dramatizing. How do you come to that, do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that, look, I think everyone falls down. Like I've, when this coronavirus started to take effect, and, I think my friend was telling me how he had to lay off 50% of his staff, and it was, Hugh's starting prep this year, and I'm just adjusting to a new routine and trying to work with him being at prep and me going to work, and so, I often feel like I'm at capacity often. So it's not like it's a daily struggle to maintain, I think, that frame of mind, I think, or that perspective, and you're gonna lose it at times. Like I no doubt I'll lose it, and so I think, for me, to keep that perspective, I think the best that I can say is probably gratitude for that one. I think that, again, actively trying to build my frame of mind during that time when I was really low was, trying to write down good things that had happened, or if, recently trying to revisit that and say, okay, what are the good things that have happened in the last sort of 2 days or 24 hours that I can say, well, that was a positive, that was a positive, that was a positive, and just sort of drawing on that, because you'll just find if you do that once, you'll be a little bit lighter afterwards, and you might make a slightly better decision in your next decision. So I think it's sort of, and there's been times where I've not done that for 6 months and given up, and probably, but if you're at least aware that you can somewhat shift your frame of mind by focusing on what you've got in your life, being grateful for that, and listing it as a daily practice, I think that's, for me personally, that's what's helped me the most.
We have a ritual in our household, my husband and I, that we share one gratitude of each other every day. We've done that for about 2 years, and one highlight from the day at the end of the day or whenever it comes to us. And also just listing gratitudes or listing highlights and sharing them, because I don't write them down as much. I tend to speak it. But I just know if I keep being kind here, I can experience more positive out there and I can notice it a little easier. It's a discipline or it's a muscle I just am so committed to keep building, because it does help. It doesn't get rid of the adversity. It doesn't take it away. It doesn't make me better in any way. I'm not being Pollyanna about it. It helps me navigate it so I can be calm and compassionate and show up for others and have some capacity to deal with it. I find it's just so powerful and profound. And I truly believe adversity is how we know what we're made of. It is good times, easy times, watching TV does not reveal our character. These are the times where we find out who we truly are. And sometimes adversity is a kind mirror and sometimes it's not. But it's always an opportunity to learn and reflect and hopefully become more aware of, maybe I need to turn this up a little bit. What I've heard from you is to turn up with proactivity. I'm just the biggest fan of, amongst the uncertainty and the things that are ambiguous and out of control and complex and spinning and unsolvable, the riddles, what can I be proactive about within the muddle? What can I do that's going to not necessarily move me forward, but just give me some calm amongst the chaos? That's a really important message. That's something we can all do, regardless of what's going on. One of the things that I was curious about is, how are you approaching today with what's going on? Is this question crude to ask you? Is there anything you've drawn on from your past that's helped you with the ambiguity of today? Or is that question just off the mark? Or where are you with that?
It's a good question. I think part of even this discussion is sort of helpful for me, because I think when Sara, when I was dealing with what I was dealing with a few years ago, I guess in a way I was quite, I was proactive, I suppose, in dealing with it. I sort of felt, I think I had built up some, over a few years, because of probably since 2008, we've been dealing with some things, and, with work and 2 young kids under 2, it wasn't really, I really needed those things in my daily life, actually. It wasn't just because of the extraordinary circumstances. It was just like, just to have 2 young boys under 2 and a busy job and a mortgage and, a wife and, and then try and find some time for yourself. You need it, actually. It's just a coping mechanism of life. And so I don't think it wasn't just for that. It was actually for my daily life to try and, as you say, give myself some space and put myself in a better frame of mind daily. So that was sort of, something I built up over years. I think, now this is, I definitely am revisiting some of that. I think honestly, I had, I probably a bit of a reacting time, to be honest, to sort of, a few weeks there where I just, I wasn't sure what to do, because as I said, I think in my head, this year was about Hugh starting school, me sort of, bedding down that routine. I was going to do some events later in the year. I was sort of thinking, okay, I sort of had some kind of vision of what this year was going to look like in my head, and that's been exploded. And it is true. And so I think definitely, there's been, a few weeks of just not really knowing what to do. Like a few bottles of red wine and, some bad habits that probably shouldn't, that I know are bad, but it's just reacting, I guess, to what's going on. So with that all gone, it definitely, I think, coming back to some of those simple daily habits and looking at, I guess, what my new day is going to look like what I said, in terms of, well, what are those things that I can still enjoy, and what is my new daily routine going to look like that I can enjoy, and probably trying to articulate that now, rather than looking too far off into sort of 6 months' time or how long this is going to go on for. It's probably more about sort of building a new routine dotted with things that I'm going to enjoy is probably priority, I think.
Yeah. I had, I call it my 5 days of insanity period last week. I don't know where this went, but it wasn't dealing with this. And yeah, 5 weeks, I had 5 days of insanity, and then full on reaction, confusion, not dealing with it. I did a lot of denial, which, really handy in the midst of.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me on around about day 6, 7, I'm not progressing in my life or feeling that I'm being me right now. So I kind of began, it took 3 days to snap out of it. My measure always when I face adversity is at the end of it, because this will pass, will I be proud of who I was during the adversity? Am I being true to who I am? Am I living my values? Am I serving where I can or contributing where I can? And am I going to like myself? That's been my measure when I've come through my moments of uncertainty. Can you speak to that at all for you, or is there a different way you would articulate this?
No, for sure. I think that was definitely going back to a couple of years ago. That was my 100% my focus. It was well, not 100%, but it was definitely a feeling of I need to be proud of myself, of how I've been through this time. If I'm not proud of how I've been through this time, then I'm not sure how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I really felt like, how could I? Because you have to live with some of those decisions that you have to make. You have to live with for the rest of your life, and you're going to need to be proud of, and you don't want to be making those decisions, in denial or not fully aware or not fully awake. You want to be fully conscious of like this, it's owning it, isn't it? It's sort of saying, well, this is my son, Alfie, and all things being said, this is the best thing that I think is the best thing for him, and therefore owning that, even if it, even if it tears you apart, you need to own it, and by owning it, that's the only power you have, I guess, sometimes at that point in time.
It is the only power we have. That's it. Who we are in the moment is all we have. Everything else is apparently incredibly uncertain. Boy, have we learned that. The whole planet has learned something you learned a couple of years ago. The foundations of what we thought we can count on, the rug got pulled out from the collective humanity, and all we have left is, okay, how am I going to navigate this? One of the things I think I have admired in terms of reading about you, Leigh, and please help me out with this, your version of this, is being the example for Hugh and making sure that you're there for Hugh. How old's Hugh now?
He's 5.5.
5.5. And so your wife's passed away, your 2-year-old son has passed away, and you have you and Hugh. I can't even imagine what you drew on to show up and be present. And I'm going to guess you were present to him, and you made a point of it. And I think I'm right.
I hope so. Yeah, I guess I think that Hugh will be the judge, I guess, in the end. But
you get to excuse his teenage years. So when he rebels and won't speak to you,
wow,
of how you've handled him younger, that's just how he's going to be. Assess him at 30.
I think, if we talk about it's those moments of challenge where you grow. I think, if I look before what happened, Sara was, incredibly a brilliant mother, incredibly nurturing and, loved her boys. And so, the reality was that she was giving them a lot of the love and attention and hugs and kisses that, I'm not saying I wasn't there. Of course I was there, but it was just a sort of shared, and certainly her being more of the nurturing part of that relationship and time. And so I think, I think through Alfie being sick, actually, it really challenged me, and I guess with Sara being sick as well, it really challenged me to sort of be more for Alfie, really, in that, especially when he was ill. And I will get to Hugh, but it's just, for me, that was when I really felt he started to, he would try, if I was in the room, he would look and he would say, okay, it's okay, Dad's here. Like he would really trust. And he sort of developed, we both developed an incredible close connection because he was younger and he didn't have his mum available all the time. And so if she was, in bed, even at home and trying to recover from chemotherapy, if he cried at night, I was up with him at night, and it was just I don't know, it just really brought a connection out in me with him and a attentiveness to how he was feeling and every little bit of his, everything. And so it's not you would never want something like this to make you realise that you could have this connection with your child, but I dare say that I wouldn't have had a stronger connection with him if I hadn't gone through this, these circumstances. And so, I could read, everything that he felt, and it was a really connection that I'd never felt before. And I think, it's probably now that's the sort of connection that I'm building with you as well. It's sort of that trying to be more, than I was to him previously. I think what it challenges you is that the role that you played previously doesn't necessarily work anymore. Your role at work or your role at home or those, you're going to have to adapt and you're going to have to be take on a new role and responsibilities. And I think that's, it's really challenged me, but it's been a really, beautiful thing for me to experience, that sort of love, and try and give more to him, give more affection, give more hugs and kisses, tell him I love him every night. Not that I wouldn't already say that, but it's just that, he needs it now. And it's also now such a realization of like, if I don't do it, nobody will now. Obviously we have a huge group of family and friends who are probably not very happy with me saying that, but no, of course Sara's family, my family, give him a lot of love as well. But I mean, in terms of daily, it's, I feel like that's my role now, isn't it? That's my purpose. I have to now be Sara and Leigh and try and be more than I was. I can't be Sara, obviously, but I have to be more. And so I think from my perspective, it's a great challenge, and it really pushes me to be more for him. And so far, he's been resilient. I suppose talking about kids, I guess there's a lot of, he's even now been quite, he's confused what's going on, like, because we're at home each day now, and he was supposed to be on school holidays and Dad's at home working, and so what do we do? We're trying to get some help from a nanny so that I can keep working, and he's confused. I mean, we rode his bike the other day and went to a playground, and there was the signs up saying kids don't play on the playground, and he's like, and I didn't realise. I guess it must have been the day after that they announced that, and he's like, well, what's wrong? I'm like, oh, we can't play on the playground. But why not? We can just go on it. What are you talking about? They're very matter of fact kids. They don't sort of, it's like, well, no one's going to know. I'm just going to go on the playground. And so it's sort of like, it's a really awkward question though, isn't it? It's sort of like, and it's the awkward questions that we're all having to deal with now. It's like, don't touch that. Don't touch your mouth. Don't put your, both fingers in your eyes after you've run around the shopping centre, touching everything in the shopping centre. It's sort of, they don't, it's sort of, what is a virus? Why is there a virus? There's a lot of sort of questions coming back from Hugh, but having said that, having seen him go from when Sara was sick and all the rest of it, he's always been very, matter of fact about it, and just wants a clear answer. And those questions are going to keep coming, and they'll keep changing. But he's been incredibly, resilient. Probably, more so than me. Obviously, they just get on with things if you keep giving them activities that they enjoy and the rest of it. So I think, I'm not. I think kids can cope. If they're pretty incredible.
I think kids can cope if their carers are there for them consistently. They take our cues from us. You said Alfie saw you and tracked you with his eyes when you walked into the room. He took his cues from you. That's a profound gift we can give them.
That's true. I mean, Alfie certainly, that's right. You're right. If we act fearful and anxious and angry, then they'll just reflect that back. I mean, I think also they don't carry the as much. I mean, it depends on the age. Obviously, Hugh's a bit older now, but certainly in my experience with Alfie there wasn't the emotional trauma that necessarily comes as you get older. I mean, if he was in pain, he was uncomfortable, but when he wasn't in pain, he was fine and he was happy to do whatever. And he didn't sit there worrying about what was going to happen the next day or whatever. He didn't have that emotional trauma of loss or, but I thought we were going to go on holiday, in 6 months, or it was just each day. And so I think that was very inspirational to watch, how well he coped with, very high dose chemotherapy, lots of surgeries and different people coming in. He just adapted with it and just was when he was good, he was fine. And when he was in pain or uncomfortable, he wasn't fine. And it wasn't, there wasn't the emotional, attachment of what he was losing. I suppose he's just not aware, but I think that's relevant for kids as well. Sometimes they just don't know, Yeah, well, I had my plans, but Hugh didn't really. Hugh was just, I'm going to school this year. That's all he cared about. So he was, finally going to school. That was his world. So,
I think as we mature, what we call maturity, sometimes I think becomes hanging on to the stuff we shouldn't be hanging on to and making more things than we should be making up to. I think sometimes maturity or adulting can be a little bit skewed into not the best of us. So what I'm taking from what you're sharing, the best of us is in not hanging on to yesterday and not trying to control tomorrow, but being fully present to this moment. And that's what I'm hearing, what you're saying and what you're attempting to do and what your kids have been showing you.
That's definitely the lesson that I've taken from my kids. Yeah.
So how are you doing? As we come to the end of this conversation, how are you? How are you doing with this? This changing?
I think you have, good days and bad days. I think I'm adjusting. Yeah, I think I'm adjusting to this new normal again, and I think it's probably gonna take some deliberate effort to get to a place where I feel happy, I guess, daily, I suppose, in this new normal, and that's what we're trying to adjust at the moment. But I think just taking it each day as it comes and trying to build better habits in the new routine is probably what I'm doing. I'm definitely confused about what I should and shouldn't be doing, and whether I should be wearing a face mask or gloves or sanitizing or going to the shops or not going to the shops or. Yeah, it's a lot of things. Yeah, and it is strange because, with my, even my parents now, they're sort of self-isolating because they're a bit, my dad's nearly 70 now, so he's probably in a higher risk category than obviously, Hugh and I. And so, we're isolating ourselves from them as well. So it's sort of, it is definitely more lonely, I think, than it's been. Because of the reduced interaction. So I think that's going to be a challenge in terms of just how to adapt and to that lack of interaction potentially with other people. So I think that for me is probably the challenge at the moment.
So thank you, Leigh. This conversation has been so much more than I was expecting. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're very kind doing this. You've got a day of work. Don't tell your boss.
Yeah, well, I don't work on Wednesdays typically. So 4 days a week. So, but at this point in time, I don't know. Work seems to be every day. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But no, it's been good to refresh and think about yeah, just what you can do, I guess, to take control, and what I can draw upon, I guess, what's happened.
I think you're a great example of what we can draw upon. There are choices we can make, and you seem to be making them. And I like how human you are. We have bad days. Let's talk about that. We're not perfect.
I didn't want to say that you know, just because you've been through something doesn't make you, you know, invulnerable to be perfect for the rest of your life. You just can't. You have, yeah, good moments and bad, and you are definitely not invulnerable just because you survived this or you did that. You know, it's a daily practice, I think, to get through it. And the thing is, that, as it seems, you know, as you get older, I guess you realise that it doesn't stop. So this won't be the last thing. There's going to be a lot more things coming, and it doesn't. It's almost like, yeah, I don't know whether you get used to it or what, but yeah, it doesn't seem to stop. So this won't be, you know, be the last time that we're having to get through something. It's hard to remember. It's hard to not. I mean, I don't want to be too pessimistic as well and say that, you know what, it was all horrible, you know, or you know, frankly, I would have rather not to have to be in hospital for, you know, a year and a half of my life and, you know, deal with all that, because it was just shit. And we tried to make the best that we could of it, you know, that you know, each day the best that we could. And in each day it was, you had those moments which were good, wasn't it? But if you know, as an entire thing, you go, God, like it was just hard and shit at times. So, but you don't really want to say that because you know, I don't know, maybe it feels like that's the wrong thing to say sometimes.
Bullshit.
And it's not the entire truth. It's not the entire truth either. Like you know, there are moments if you look for them that are good. But in its entirety, if you had your choice, you would just say that was shit and I would rather do something else. Yeah.
They're the choices we have. The next unsettling moment, if we don't learn from this one and not learn from it in terms of don't catch a virus, but learn about what it takes for us to grow through this and to be proud of who we are, if we don't take that as the opportunity we've been given, the next thing that rocks us is going to rock us to our core again. And so it goes. We're just going to be a human pinball through life, because right, it is going to happen again, a version of this. That's living.
And I think it also means you don't have to, pretend to be invulnerable either. I mean, it will, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, I couldn't work for nearly, I think it was over 12 months, you know, when Sara and Alfie was sick. Like, that was all I was doing, was looking after them and coming home. And I was at capacity, and that's all I could handle. And, you know, and now it's sort of readjusting, saying, well, if Hugh's going to be home, can I homeschool Hugh and work at the same time? Well, probably not, I'm guessing. And so I think it's probably when you're in adversity, I hit my limits often, but you'll hit your limits. But that doesn't mean that those limits are always there, but it's just that, you know, it's not going to feel, I think at this point in time, you know, for me as well, sometimes it feels like, oh, I've hit my limit. And I guess it's about, thinking about that and what you can do then to move to a place where you are sort of getting a bit of a roll on in a new routine. So I think, it's not that you can just forever be more and more and more to everyone. I suppose, you've got to realise that these moments will push your limits, and so you need to accept that is your limit at that point in time. Yeah.
And be okay with that. And that's as far as it's going to go. And Hugh's going to have a great year not going to school. That could be. There are other ways to learn, Leigh. There are other ways to life. There's only so much we can all do, and I think every parent would be wrestling with the same conversation right now. Maintaining everything just doesn't seem that viable constantly every single day. We don't have to be superhuman. We are collectively experiencing seismic shift in the foundations of what we thought we could count on. It's okay if some things slip. that would be being human.
That's important. Yeah.
So thank you, Leigh. That's really been fantastic. I trust you got value from this conversation and you felt it was worth your time. I'm so grateful.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, no, I think so. I think it sort of helped me think through some things that I probably need to re-implement and be proactive about. Yeah, keep the perspectives, because I think sometimes, as you say, if you don't take those perspectives and take them with you, well, then it really isn't. It was all for nothing, wasn't it? So I think it's about revisiting and maintaining some perspectives. You don't learn it once and have it for the rest of your life. You actually need to keep relearning these things, which is really annoying. But Sara and I used to laugh. Because it was sort of like, back in, 2008, she was sick. 2009, we were like she wasn't sick. And I think we were happy and everything was lovely. And then you get back into the line of life, and it's sort of an element of just forgetting. I don't know how else to put it, of just forgetting to appreciate things or to realise that it can all be taken away tomorrow. And you sort of do forget, I guess, unless you keep actively thinking about it or practicing it.
I think that's what this conversation has really highlighted for me, certainly, and I hope for our viewers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon. Okay.